beat inside me. I'll be with you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that I haven't met, my name is Jennifer Broadbent, and it's my sad privilege to lead this memorial service today as we gather to say goodbye to a remarkable young man, a much-loved partner, son, brother, grandson, nephew, cousin and friend, Johnathon Luke Bentancourt. Known to some of you as Jono, or perhaps Big Fella. At his family's request, I will be calling him both Johnathon and Jono today. On behalf of Jonathan's partner, Chris, his parents, Terry Lee and Richard, his sister Mercedes and brother Noah, I warmly welcome you all. To begin today's service, they'll be coming forward to light 5 candles. Noah, Mercedes. Just stand around this side so people can see on the live stream. Yep. The first candle represents our grief. The pain of losing you is intense. It reminds us of the depth of our love for you. The second candle represents our courage to confront our sorrow, to comfort each other, to change our lives. This third candle we light in your memory for the times we laughed, the times we cried, the times we may have been angry with each other, the silly things you did, the caring and the joy you gave us. This fourth candle we light for our love. We light this candle knowing that your light will always shine. The fifth candle we light represents a special place in our hearts that will always be reserved for you. We thank you for the gift your living brought to each of us. We will always love and remember you. behalf of everyone here today, I offer our sincere condolences to Chris, to Terry Lee, Richard, Mercedes, Noah, and to Jonathan's grandparents and extended family members. Please know that you have our love and support, and that we share in your grief. Now, Jono left strict instructions for this service. All of the music, speakers and poems we hear today were selected by Jono himself, along with a few other requests. Firstly, he really wanted this service to be held under the willow tree at his grandma's. Sadly, due to the COVID-19 restrictions, this can't happen. But perhaps during the course of today you might like to journey there for a visit. We are not to play any irrelevant music. His mum, Terry Lee, was to make all the final decisions that he had not pre-approved. We are all expected to avoid crying and displays of heartache. In his words, no emotional messes overtaking my celebration of life ceremony. And lastly, Jonathan requests that at some time, somewhere nice, that we all might like to plant a flower or a bush in his honour. You will notice that Jonathan is surrounded by the things he loved most in his life: his clarinets, and what a talented musician he was, a bag, or actually a big bowl, of his favourite lollies, and a couple of pairs of his socks. Jono loved his quirky socks, and they really represented his individual personality. And of course, he is surrounded by our love. Everyone here today was important to Jonathan. He loved us all, and he died secure in our love for him. Jono was a kind, tolerant, enthusiastic, courteous and friendly young man who had an innate decency and integrity. He had a great sense of humour, a mischievous smile and a contagious laugh. He never flinched in a crisis, never ducked for cover, and was always consistent in his manner and life. He was a gifted musician who always gave the very best. And so it is today that we grieve the loss of a young man who, in his short stay on earth, has given us all so much. Jonathan passed away peacefully in his sleep in the early hours of Wednesday, the 29th of July. It was his wish to be privately cremated prior to this service. And in a fitting and poignant tribute, his ashes were carried here today, safe in the arms of his pa, Yopi. Yopi was there at the very beginning of Jonathan's life. He was the official cord cutter, and Jonathan was also named after him. Let us pray. Compassionate and loving God, yours is the beauty of childhood, and yours is the fullness of years. Comfort us in our sorrow, strengthen us with hope, and breathe peace into our troubled hearts. Assure us that the love we had for Jonathan was not in vain. Indeed, make it a part of the store of goodness you are even now pouring out upon him in your eternal kingdom. Indeed, help us to bless you for the gift you gave us in him, for the joy he gave to all who knew him, and for the memories that will abide with us, and for the assurance that he lives forever in the joy and peace of your presence. Guide us through this time of sadness with the light of your love and the strength of your compassion. Amen. Now, in a tribute to Jono, his aunties, Kate and Kobe, and brother Noah are going to come forward now to read two poems, I'm Free and A Young Life Cut Short. Thank you.
Don't grieve for me, for now I am free. I'm following the path God has laid, you see. I took his hand when I heard him call. I turned my back and left it all. I could not stay another day to laugh, to love, to work, to play. Task left undone must stay that way. I found that peace at the end, at the close of the day. If my parting has left a void, then fill it with remembered joy. A friendship shared, a laugh, a kiss. Oh yes, these things I too will miss.
Be not burdened with times of sorrow. I wish you the sunshine of tomorrow. My life's been full, I savoured much. A good friend, good friends, good times, a loved one's touch. Perhaps my time seemed all too brief. Don't lengthen it now with undue grief. Lift up your hearts and peace to thee. God wanted me now, he set me free.
Do not judge a biography by its length, nor by the number of pages in it. Judge it by its richness of content. Sometimes those unfinished are among the most poignant. Do not judge a song by its duration, nor by the number of notes. Judge it by the way it touched and lifted the soul. Sometimes those unfinished are among the most beautiful. And when something has enriched your life, and when its melody lingers on in your heart, is it unfinished, or is it endless?
Thank you. We're going to pause for a few moments now to watch a slideshow of photographs depicting Jono's early childhood years, after which his mum, Terry Lee, will be coming forward to read a poem and to share Jono's life story with us. Thank you.
I don't know where you're going, but I'll meet you there. I can't blame you for leaving, but it's still not fair. And when I don't know what to say, I sing about you. Now I don't know what to do now that you're not here. I don't know how to love, don't know how to feel. When I don't want to believe, I'll believe in you. I'll believe in you. I don't know what to think. I think about you.
Carry on, my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more. Once I rose above the noise and confusion, just to get a glimpse beyond this illusion. I was soaring ever higher, but I flew too high. Though my eyes could see, I still was a blind man. Though my mind could think, I still was a madman. I hear the voices when I'm dreaming. I can hear them say, carry on, my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more. Masquerading as a man with a reason. My charade is the event of the season. And if I claim to be a wise man, it surely means that I don't know. On a stormy sea of moving emotion, tossed about I'm like a ship on the ocean. I set a course for winds of fortune, but I hear the voices say, carry on, my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more. No! Carry on, you will always remember. Carry on, nothing equal the splendor. Now your life's no longer empty. Surely heaven waits for you. Carry on, my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry. Don't you cry no
I might do this first because I'm not sure I'll get through the poem. He did that on purpose, I think. He was Jonathan and Jono, sometimes big fella. I heard him referred to as sock boy, but he was never John. His second grade teacher, Mrs. Skilton, insisted on John. Needless to say, she didn't have a good year that year. In February 1996, before he was born, I wrote a letter to him. I didn't know he was him then. It said I hoped we would always be friends, and we were. We shared a love of the same TV shows, messy cars, bedrooms, messy lots of things really, lazy mornings and good humour. I also wrote that if I was having a girl, her name would be Topaz. We'd recently laughed and Jono said he would have locked in being a boy as soon as I had put that one down on paper. In May 96 I wrote, "Dear Jonathan Luke, you have a name and I hope you don't mind and I hope you like them. You should be proud to have those names." And he was. He took pride in his name and he loved the people he shared them with. On the 4th of September 96, he finally arrived, and I say finally because it was a long labour and he wasn't budging. It seemed the more they induced me, the further into my rib cage he went. And he pretty much didn't like getting out of bed any day after that, so he was born at 2:08 a.m. and he weighed in at 8 pounds and 15 ounces. I held him in my arms, and I knew that he knew how much love I had for him. He was an old soul, and he walked to the beat of his own drum or the sound of his clarinet. Jono's eyes are the most wonderful shade of golden brown. I'd not seen anything like them ever before. His eyes got him a lot of attention. When he was 3, he won a baby show for his eyes, leaving his baby sister Sadie with a participation ribbon. Richard wasn't very happy with that. In the beginning, it was just the 2 of us, but we had a village of support. Nan, Mum, Yope, all the siblings, aunts and uncles, except for Kate, she wasn't here yet. In the March, I met Richard and our family grew. I joked quite seriously that he fell in love with Jono well before he fell in love with me. In June 97, we moved in together and we were a family, and we were filled with love. It was a few years ago that we were in Cranbourne as a family, and Richard mentioned in the car when he met Jono for the first time. The car went silent, and then Sadie and Noah both looked at Jono and said, "Did you know he isn't your dad? You can call him Richard." We all laughed out loud, and I think I smacked you then. And Jono said, "He is my dad." We had many doctor's visits where Jono would recite his family history, being Bentancourt and Maxwell. We forgot that he wasn't hereditary, but he definitely was a Bentancourt. Richard and Jono spent a lot of time snuggling, and sleep became one of Jono's favourite things to do. He would give me a tug when he was tired. He would get his dummy and a pair of Richard's boxer shorts, and we would say the Our Father, and before we even said the Amen, he was snoring. As he grew, this didn't change. He could sleep anywhere and instantly. He was a great talker. I remember an elderly lady approaching a 2-year-old Jono to tell him how cute he was, and he responded, "My name is Johnathon Luke. Nice to meet you," and he extended his hand. He enjoyed many a Friday night brandy with Nan and the old girls and Sunday lunches at the RSL. He was fond of older people, and he enjoyed their conversation. And this didn't change as he got older. Unfortunately, Corey passed away, but it wasn't long before Sadie and Noah joined us, and he certainly took on the older brother role, taking any opportunity to be in charge, and from a young age scolding Richard and I for not doing things right, or letting them get away with things that he would never have. Not that he ever got in trouble. The only time he ever got suspended at school was when I told him to go to Coles, and he wasn't at all impressed with me. And he would be suitably unimpressed if I failed to mention the love of his pets, Chevy, Mr Miyagi and Putty. And it's comforting to know that he had Taylor, his ducks, waiting for him, along with his big sister Corey and cousin Darcy. We once received a call from a nurse who had taken some blood from him in primary school, congratulating us on what a lovely young man we had. He loved his extended family and rarely missed an event. The day his treatment started, Kate and I had taken him for a haircut to prepare for Bonnie's engagement. We laughed later about how stupid it was to get a haircut the day before you're going to have to start chemo, but we did it anyway. He was adamant he was going to Bonnie's engagement party, and he was suitably angry at the hospital when they trumped the party with the chemo. He spent many weekends at Abuela's and Annie's swimming, drinking mate and learning Spanish. A skill he continued to work on as an adult, and that came in very handy during our American stay. Trips to Ardmona were frequent, and we would play American Pie when we hit Ardmona Road, and the car would erupt with "Next stop, Grandma's house." Fun with the aunties swimming in the moat and Grandma baking, the chocolate pudding a favourite, which was requested on our return from America. Sundays at Grandma's became staple: Chinese, banana fritters and a game of cards. I'm not going to tell you about the cards because that could involve me swearing, and I don't think that's appropriate over a live stream. Over the last few years, Johnathon's cocktail a cocktail was expected at almost every gathering. And he travelled with his cocktail kit and he pulled it out and insisted on trying his perfectly made drink. He did dance to the beat of his own drum, literally and quite figuratively. He used to wiggle his hips to the Latin sounds of Shakira and lift his shoulders to the beats of Nicki Minaj. Music always influenced his life. He sang, danced, and songs became staples to his memories. I recall in primary school we had a discussion about why it wasn't a good idea that he took a Dorothy costume to school. I thought I'd won because I had a very rational argument, but later got a call from the school that Jono at lunch dressed as Dorothy and sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow on the school oval. They followed it up with there was nothing wrong with that, but he might get teased. He did get teased, but he stayed true to himself. Primary school was challenging. He struggled to find a niche and a friend to share his interests. He enjoyed his grade 6 year with Mr. Tyndall and was looking forward to his high school start. He met Lindy Tennant and she introduced him to the clarinet. He told me recently that Chris reminded him of Lindy because he would forever be putting down his hot drink, lose it, and then find it again when it was cold, just like she did. The music and clarinet changed his life. He was good at it. It gave him confidence, and then he found himself. He found good friends and a best friend and a protector in Ali. He got involved with a diversity group and then became an advocate and participated in Pride March and a host of other groups. I think his love of cooking was founded in Grandma's kitchen, but he was fostered at school and he spoke very fondly of Mrs. Frizzell and her birthday cakes. Food was important to Jono, and unfortunately I'm not a great cook, and he often complained that I put no thought into my ingredients or my flavours. A few weeks ago, he instructed me on making a tomato risotto and looked at me very proudly to tell me it was really good. And even though Chris and Richard's finished product pasta tasted good, he wasn't all impressed with their inability to follow his instructions. He was an advocate for the underdog, and most recently the actual underdog. He wasn't impressed with Grandma leaving Mo at home but bringing the younger pup Jimmy to visit him. He insisted Mo was to be included in his visits. And he didn't really like Mo to start off with, but I think he sort of related being the only child and then having to put up with younger siblings to Mo and Jimmy. He was outspoken on his political views and moral views and would often post a meme or comment with a smile, waiting for the inevitable debate to begin. And he unapologetically told you exactly what he thought. He loved the Real Housewives on TV and he loved the Real Housewives drama at home. He was... In America, a few of the nurses used to come in and listen to our conversations and say, "Can I just bring my lunch in here because it's much more entertaining than watching TV in the lunchroom." Some of those conversations were around Kobe and Moose. That was a big drama. Richard did something he didn't think I'd like a couple of weekends ago, and he said, "Mum, he thought I should raise it with him, but could I do it at lunchtime when everyone could hear?" He was a little bit random like that as well, and we had a story the other day that reminded me I had a consecutive random things arrive in the post. The first one was a metal playing card, which was actually a Death Star thing that you used to kill people, and then the next one was a full-size bow and arrow. Then we got a letter from Customs saying that an illegal weapon had been intercepted and that perhaps he should stop ordering things online. I started to wonder what was actually happening, what was he planning? But he was like that. He was random. I remember listening to his first solo on the clarinet. It was Licorice 6, and I returned to Richard and said, "Wow, he can play." On the 9th of June 2012, I'd written down in a book, I picked up Pop and Noah and I went to watch Jono's Vic Orchestra Workshop performance. Truly amazing. Words can't describe how wonderful it was. His music, families became important to him. The Maribna Secondary College Band and the GV Orchestra Brass Band, the Brass Band, and most recently the Melbourne Rainbow Band. He travelled all over the state to practice and perform. He loved his music, and the addition of his new clarinets recently made him smile with pride. After high school, he worked at Chi Chi's for a year, and for the same reason Jono didn't get a haircut for years because Dad asked him to, the father-son pizza shop combo reminded him of an episode of Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. In America, we watched them all together, and he couldn't wait to get home to share it with Richard.
We actually had a couple of laughs because Richard thinks he's Gordon Ramsay, but Jono thought he was the restaurant owners. After his 12 months in Bendigo, he switched to hospitality. He enjoyed his time at Quaff and the Wine Bank and Craft & Co, and he loved sharing with anyone who would listen a lesson on good wine, good food and good service. He spent over the 12 months at Julie's, and he enjoyed those times, and he actually harnessed a little bit of his card game playing, but not enough to stop me swearing at him, so we still won't go into that. In early 2019, he found Chris. I think he shared a photo with Sadie of Chris before he shared it with me. But the next lunch we had to pick up a donut for Chris as well, even though I hadn't met him. Jono loved Chris. He would say, "I love you, baby," 100 times a day. Chris very quickly became part of our family, and I promised Jono that is where he would stay. When this cancer thing started, Jono used to cringe at needles, and when he had a cold, it was the man flu. It wasn't long, though, before he was asking everyone else if they were okay, and right to the end being adamant that he could do it himself. There was a moment when we were doing everything we could to save him, and we were asking people to extend their hearts and their wallets to help us to get to America for treatment that unfortunately didn't work. But he realised that people loved him, and he said, "Mum, they really want me to stay, don't they?" And I said, "Oh, honey, we really want you to stay." And that really meant something to him. He was most worried about us. He was worried we would be so sad we would miss those special moments or forgot to show people around us how much we love them. He didn't want our crazy family to get any crazier. He wanted us to cook for him, listen with him, and succeed for him. I'd like to finish by sharing a conversation that Jono and I recently had. He was telling me how washed cheese was his favourite. He talked for ages about all the different soft cheeses and how to make mozzarella. And then he said, "I have to. No, I didn't get a chance to try the hard cheeses, Mum." That's what life's about, Mum, finding time for the hard cheese. I love you, Johnathon, Luke. And I'm going to try the hard cheese. And he wanted me to read this poem. A child loaned. "I'll lend you a little child of mine," he said, "for you to love while he lives and mourn for when he's dead. He may be 6 or 7 or even 22 or 3, but will you, till I call him back, take care of him for me? He'll bring his charm to gladden you, and should his stay be brief, you'll have his lovely memories as solace for your grief. I cannot promise he will stay, since all from earth return, but lessons are taught down there, and I want this child to learn. I've looked the wild world over for teachers true, and from the throng, the crowd's life's lane, I've selected you. Now will you give him all your love, nor think the labour's vain, and hate me when I come for him, to call him back home again? I fancied that I heard them say, Dear Lord, thy will be done. For the joys the child shall bring, the risk of grief will run. We'll shelter him with tenderness, we'll love him while we may, and for the happiness we've known forever grateful stay. But should the angels call him much sooner than we planned, we'll brave the bitter grief that comes and try to understand.
Johnathon will be very proud of you, Terry Lee. I'd now like to ask Jono's partner Chris to come forward to read a poem that Jono has requested and to share with us a few words.
Thanks. God's garden. God looked around his garden and found an empty place. He then looked down upon the earth and saw your tired face. He put his arms around you and lifted you to rest. God's garden must be beautiful. He always takes the best. He knew that you were suffering. He knew you were in pain. He knew that you would never get well on earth again. He saw the road was getting rough and the hills were hard to climb. So he closed your weary eyelids and whispered, "Peace be thine." It broke our hearts to lose you, but you didn't go alone. Part of us went with you the day God called you home. Clumsy but lovable. That's how Johnathon described himself on his dating profile. I don't know if it was the photo of Chevy giving him a big kiss or the one where you could see his warm amber eyes that hooked me. We moved fast, and within about a month, he was pretty much living in my apartment. My roommate was lucky if Jono was wearing pants. We fit together like puzzle pieces. 1 minute we were apart, and the next we were part of a whole. And I wasn't allowed to cook anymore. My onion chopping skills made sure of that. I came out to my parents in January of 2019. A month later, I met Jono. Our first 6 months together were perhaps the happiest I have been. He helped me see that it was okay for me to be me. He didn't mind that I found it hard to be affectionate in public. If you were close to Jono, you know that you couldn't hide your feelings from him. He could always coax out what was bothering me, even when he had chemo brain. He wore his heart on the outside, and when you were around him, you had to too. He was especially good at making me feel better too. He knew how to fix what was wrong even when I didn't. Once I was having a really bad week, and he decided we needed to escape the city for a night and go to Julie's. I was not a fan, but he persisted through my grumpiness. That night, we sat in the grass in the freezing cold and watched the stars. It was just warm enough next to him, and just like that, I felt good again. We almost didn't go because of me, but he knew it was just what I needed. I learned very quickly that Jono was a particular person, particular about everything. You could call him Johnathon or Jono, but you'd be in trouble if you tried John. He said it was an ugly sound. There were a million of these particularisms, and they always came with a very Johnathon explanation. He was fussy about food. He didn't like potatoes, because one year Grandma said he couldn't leave the table until he finished his potatoes. He said he would be sick. Grandma said, "Eat your potatoes." He was sick. He didn't like soup, because it wasn't interesting and not technical. He didn't like rosé because it isn't real wine. Only shepherd and kebabs will do. He had to research restaurant menus a day before so that he could still take 40 minutes to pick anything. He was also a person of passion. If he loved you deeply. And if he hated you, good luck. He adored his animals, Chevy, Taylor, Mr. Miyagi, and Putty. He also loved ducks, either swimming on the lake or in cherry sauce, which is the only acceptable savory food to go with a fruit. He was also incredibly outspoken and loved to argue about almost anything. You knew you were on the losing side if he said he was about to crack the shits. At the same time, he loved to hear what others had to say and would always get others to chime in, if only to let him argue more. He would never hold your wrong opinions against you, except for a bit of drama, which was another passion of his. Jono was a very generous person. He would never let anyone pay or split the bill if he took you out for lunch. He would never show up empty-handed to someone's house. He always had a gift or something freshly baked in hand. My friends never left the apartment on an empty stomach. He made sure of that. He could never get anything to eat and not force me to have a bite too. He also never failed to make sure I got a glimpse of whatever gross pimple-popping video he was watching at the time. Jono didn't just love food. He was serious about food. He knew more about food than almost anyone else I know, and he loved to share that knowledge through eating and cooking. I went from easy stir-fries and curries to confit salmon and homemade gnocchi on a regular basis with him. The same was true for his music. It wasn't a hobby. It was a serious passion. Jono was brave, and he made me truly proud. I thought he was a bit of a wimp before he got sick. But before I knew it, he was hounding the doctors to pump him full of more poison because he had things to do and couldn't be dealing with this whole being sick thing. They say this cancer thing is a battle, but I don't think that's true. I've never seen someone fight so hard for anything and still lose. It's just horrific and unfair. There was no more he could have done, but I will always be in awe of how hard he tried anyways. While he was sick, he was more preoccupied with how the rest of us were doing than how terrible he felt. There's so much more I could say, but I would never stop talking. And that's okay, because I'll be telling his story for the rest of my life, little bits at a time. He made sure I knew he loved me before he went, being insistent that I was not to sleep anywhere except at his side. There would never have been enough time with him, but I'm so lucky to have had what I had. I'll end here by saying if you had ever seen his shirt after going out to eat, you would know he was particularly clumsy. And if you're as fortunate as I was to have him in your life, then you know with absolute certainty that he was most definitely lovable.
Well done, Chris. My relationship with Jono started when we were at, I was a family daycare educator, and Jono and his siblings come into my care for a little while. And even then, Jono loved to cook, and we made cheesy Vegemite scrolls one day after school. And the following week he came back with, "Jen, let's make those scrolls again, but I've got a few little tweaks I'd like to add." So whenever I see a cheesy Vegemite scroll, it reminds me of Jono. I'd now like to ask his best friend, Ali, to come forward, please.
Last week, I had a conversation with Chris. If words can truly convey how you feel. I argued if you knew yourself and how you felt, it was possible. But you were right, Chris. No amount of time will enable me to describe how much I miss Jono or what his friendship meant to me. A million little moments make up a friendship, and I treasure every one I have with Jono. He was my best friend and confidant. He never stopped growing or learning, and he was always so excited to share what he knew with everyone around him. We became close in year 8, and he quickly became someone I cared about deeply. I remember some kids tried to bully Jono, and while it didn't seem to faze him much, I was always ready to throw down with every one of them. Even then, he was someone I'd always protect. I actually asked him to be my dead partner back in year 11, and I was mockingly offended when he rejected me. But his reasoning was that some other girls had already asked him, and how could he say no to them and yes to me? He did admit to me a few years later he wished he'd said yes, but that was Jono. He was the most caring person. He was always thoughtful and considerate of everyone around him. At parties in year 12, if I wandered off, he'd always call me and tell me to come back because he missed me, even if I'd only been gone a few minutes. And while everyone will tell you of his love of wine and cheese and fancy restaurants, let's not forget his love of Jaeger bombs, and how at every party he'd add people on Snapchat, drunk as a skunk, and nickname himself Jägermeister, and absolutely butcher the spelling. He was continually empathetic and understanding of those around him, but he was an excellent judge of character and impossible to fool. You were either worth his time or you weren't. Yet he was someone I could always be vulnerable with when we were young and didn't know how to be. But don't get me wrong, our friendship was 80% giving each other shit and only 20% heartfelt moments. I remember the first time he stood up for me. I had a particularly nasty TAFE teacher and he was ready to destroy her entire family and anyone else who got in his way. He actually made me cry that day and I looked at him and I said, "Oh my God, this is the first time you've ever been nice to me." Anyone who knew Jono knows his cheeky grin and hysterical laughter, and our friendship was full of laughs. I'll never forget the day he let a wasp into my house and I locked him in a room with it until he figured out how to get rid of it. Or how at my 19th birthday party, we were very drunk, when Jono said he needed help heating up some food. I flung open the oven door and it broke off on one side. I looked at him and told him to run and bolted out the back door. He found me half an hour later. He didn't run and instead got caught by my mum, who thought he was more mature than that. But yeah, sorry Mum, that was me. I recently looked through our messages and all of them consist of, "Wanna hang? Sure, door's unlocked." And while Jono loved to go out for lunch, he was extremely indecisive, and if a restaurant didn't have what he wanted, he'd always go, "Well, that's homophobic." So we constantly have to play a half an hour game of what don't you want to eat before we'd get lunch and either sit at the Shep Lake or go home and watch Netflix. The lake was always fun. We'd watch the ducks and dogs go past, but Jono loved TV shows and he always had new recommendations for me. However, on the occasion where we'd pick a new show together, Jono would ask question after question after question. It would get to the point I'd have to pause the show and yell at him that I didn't know what was going to happen either. A million little moments make up our friendship. Moments on the couch, road trips, lunch dates, parties, classes together, watching bad movies, and Jono changed my life a million times. I now only cook buttermilk pancakes after he discovered to his utter horror that I made normal ones. Or that the only reason I eat Hungry Jacks is because he knew I'd like the cheesy bacon tender crisp without tomato, of course. Or the only reason that I'm at uni is because Jono told me about a creative writing degree, which is the bachelor I'm currently enrolled in. I thought Jono and I would have another million moments together, and while it breaks my heart that I won't, I'll always hold the ones I have close. And by the way, I do have a copy of how he spelt Jägermeister if anybody wants to see it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellie. And I have a few other little tributes here to read on behalf of the family. And these were words that have been spoken over the last few days. Firstly, from the Golden Valley Concert Orchestra. Jono will be remembered for his chatty, warm personality, his enthusiastic love of music, and his passion for performance. From Leah, Max and Paddy, Jono was honest, spoke his mind, and could make a mean cocktail. Grandma Liz, he was a zebra in a herd of elephants. And the Melbourne Rainbow Band, he lit our hearts from his very first rehearsal, and he gave us so much joy. And on behalf of Jonathan's family, I would also like to acknowledge the wonderful doctors, nurses and medical personnel who have cared for Jono during his illness. He thought fondly of the team at Peter Mac, his Dr. Sasenka, Nurse Tracy and social worker Cecilia most importantly. Jono knew that Sasenka tried her best for him and was touched by her commitment. Over the journey, charities Red Kite and Rare Cancers provided much needed support and guidance. And in the last few weeks, the team at GV Hospice Care helped to make sure that Jono could stay at home with his family, which was very important to him, and he grew to appreciate their visits. For many of us here today, we've had the privilege of watching Jono grow from a child into the fine young man that he was. The next slideshow we will be watching depicts these later years, after which his sister Mercedes will come forward to read her chosen poem. These next few moments are yours.
liqueur is alcohol that has been watered the fuck down. So it's got barely any alcohol in it. That's why you don't shot liqueurs. They're for making drinks. You use spirits to take shots, because then you get a full drink.
But I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors are beautiful like a rainbow. Show me a smile then. Don't be unhappy. Can you remember when I last saw you laughing? If this world makes you crazy and you take it all you can bear, you call me up because you know I'll be there, and I'll see your true colors shining through. I'll see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let it show your true colors. Your true colors are beautiful like a rainbow. Can't remember when I last saw you laugh. If this world makes you crazy, you take it all you can bear. You call me up because you know I'll be there, and I'll see your true colors shining through. I'll see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let it show your true colors. True colors, true colors are shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors are beautiful like a rainbow.
I fell by the wayside like everyone else. I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, but I was just kidding myself. Our every moment I started a place, 'cause now that they're gone, all I hear were the words that I needed to say. When you hurt under the surface, like troubled water running cold. Well, time can heal, but this won't. So before you go, was there something I could have said to make your heart beat better? If only I'd have known you were the storm to weather. So before you go, was there something I could how your mind can make you feel so worthless. So before you go, was never the right time, whenever you're cold. Went little by little by little until there was nothing at all. Or every moment I started to replay, but all I can think about is seeing that look on your face when you hurt under the surface, like troubled water running cold. Well, time can heal, but this won't. So so worthless. So before you go, we'll be better off by now. If I let my walls come down, maybe I guess we'll never know. You know, before you go, was there something I could have said to make your heart beat better? If only I'd have known you were the storm to weather. So before you go, was there something I could have said to make it all stop hurting? It kills me how your mind can make you feel so worthless. So before you go.
God took him to his loving home. God saw him getting tired. A cure was not to be. He wrapped him in his loving arms and whispered, "Come with me." He suffered much in silence. His spirit did not bend. He faced his pain with courage until the very end. He tried so hard to stay with us, but his fight was not in vain. God took him to his loving home and freed him from the pain.
There are no words of comfort that can cushion the shock when faced with the death of someone so young. We will never understand why the natural order of life has been disrupted, but we can take a leaf from Jono's book and think about our fellow man during the days, weeks and months ahead. The spirit, dignity and courage that marked Jono's life were never more evident than right at the very end. Without complaining, he never gave up, and he always had a special word and a great big hug for anyone who came to visit. His extraordinary courage in facing his approaching death was remarkable. We can all honour him by doing what he would want us to do, to live our lives well and to enjoy the sunshine and the laughter through the years that we have left, and to be happy for the years we had with him and for the love, joy and happiness he brought into our lives. The giving of self through love is the greatest pleasure life can give, and we will remember Jono as someone who lived by that. I'm going to share with you a final poem, and to feel its sacred meaning, I ask you to think of Johnathon. Perhaps you might like to close your eyes as you bring images of him to mind. Think of me, at one at rest. For me you should not weep. I have no pain, no troubled thoughts, for I am just asleep. The living thinking me that was is now forever still, and life goes on without me now, as time forever will. If your heart is heavy now because I've gone away, dwell not long upon it, friend, for none of us can stay. Those of you who liked me, I sincerely thank you all, and those of you who loved me, I thank you most of all. And in my fleeting lifespan, as time went rushing by, I found some time to hesitate, to laugh, to love, to cry. Matters it now if time began, if time will ever cease? I was here, I used it all, and now I am at peace. We give thanks for the life of Johnathon. We remember him for the man he was, though we can only know a portion of his world. He lives on through all he has touched, the common life of which we are all a part. He lives on especially through those whose lives were intertwined with him. We remember those who loved Johnathon the most and feel he's lost the most. And now, as we say a final farewell to one held so dear, let us be comforted and trusting that a human life is full of meaning and purpose, even in death. Hold to the light his beautiful smile, and to always remember the joy that you were able to have in your precious years with him. Let the memory and thoughts of Johnathon stir deep gratitude that he has lived, that he has touched our lives, and that his name be spoken freely and with great honour and respect. We thank you, Jono, for your friendship and loyalty, for the good times and for the difficulties that have provided the opportunity for change and transformation. Thank you for the music and your laughter. Thank you for your smile and the magic you wove into the lives of those who came into contact with you. Thank you for being you. We ask that you soar into your journey and know that the space you hold in our hearts will always be there for you. You've left behind a legacy of kindness, love and commitment, and enduring respect from all who were privileged to have known you. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose on earth, a time to be born and a time to die. Here in this last act in sorrow but without fear, with love and appreciation, we commit Johnathon Luke Bentancourt to the purifying elements, earth to end, dust to dust. His journey here on earth has ended and is beginning in another realm, reunited with those who have gone before him for all eternity. I'd like to invite Johnathon's grandma Liz to come forward, please, to lead us in the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. God bless you, Johnathon. Rest in peace.
Chris and Terry Lee, Richard, Sadie and Noah, would you like to come forward and extinguish the candles, please? Just stand around together. You might have to take your masks off just for a moment. Stand in a circle. Thanks, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, our service has come to an end, and I thank you all for your attendance, whether here in the chapel or via the live stream. Johnathon loved to share his time and his music, And of course, he loved to share his lollies. As we listen to one final song, a song that is very special to Terry Lee and Richard, it's the song they first sang to Johnathon when he was a baby. You're my sunshine, my only sunshine. I invite you all to come forward in your own time to take a lolly from the bowl before you leave the chapel. May peace be with you all.
So I hung my head and I cried. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. I'll always love you and make you happy, and nothing else could come between. But if you leave me to love another, you'll have shattered all of my dreams. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away.
Alone. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand.
I can still remember how that music used to make me smile. And I knew that if I had my chance, I could make those people dance. And maybe they'd be happy for a while. Did you write the book of love? And do you have faith in God above? If the Bible tells you so, smiled and turned away. Well, I went down to the sacred store where I'd heard the music